last year, for those of you who were here, will remember that I had the chairman of the McLaren Group, Ron Dennis, on stage because he had just committed to take the SAP technology and use it to run his business better. And he promised last year that he would be back on stage this year to update us all on progress. Please help me in welcoming Ron Dennis on stage.
Morning, Jim.
Ron, thanks for joining.
My pleasure.
Let's have a seat over here and talk a little bit about where the world is going and where your business is going in high speed. We were just talking about more sustainable business models, how you can apply technology to become a better run business and take more care of resources. And you have just launched a new Formula One season and a new car, the hybrid P1.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the middle here, I believe.
Absolutely.
And tell us about sustainability, because sports cars and Formula One is not the first thing you think of when you think sustainable models.
Absolutely. You think it'd be the last thing you would think of. Gas guzzling, high performance vehicles rushing around circuits and the streets, generally consuming vast amounts of energy, hydrocarbons, etc. But in fact, as with the P1, our business is it's driven by efficiencies. Of course, we want to be the best in the world. There's no question. We want to be first in everything we do. But we also want to be environmentally conscious. We're probably, in fact we are, the first Formula One team ever to be awarded and actually retain a Carbon Trust standard. That means we're carbon neutral. Our hybrid, it's 1,000 horsepower, 200 grams of emissions. I mean, that is technology. And technology is absolutely what we're all about. We research on a constant basis. We want to be state of the art, and of course we want to embrace anything, any tool that can make us better.
Well, great, there you have it. I would love to drive a 1,000 horsepower car with no emissions.
It'll happen.
Thank you.
It'll happen.
I was hoping you would say that in front of all these people.
Next year you can talk about it.
Okay, I look forward to that. So, well, last year you talked about applying the business suite to run your business. And I know that the teams have worked hard also to add HANA to the equation for your Formula One team. Talk about what has happened since and how you see the technology of software helping your business.
Well, first of all, let me try and put HANA for me in context. You talked about Darwin briefly. Okay, you can talk about Archimedes, you can talk about Brunel, people who changed the world. I mean, that's what they did. These individuals changed the world. I truly believe if HANA was a person, she'd go down in its history as changing the world. This is beyond comprehension. When people ask me, who's HANA? I actually say, well, actually, it's more of a who than it's less of a who and more of a what. Now, what HANA allows us to do, let me try and simplify it. I know there's there's probably more geeks in this room than you could possibly imagine, but I have to explain to lesser mortals, what is HANA? And so I say, let me just give you an example. A Grand Prix car is covered in hundreds of sensors, and we harvest throughout a Grand Prix off of each car 6.5 billion pieces of data. That's a lot of data, which means for two cars it's 13 billion bits of data. Let's assume they were people, okay? That's twice the world's population.
In one race.
In one race. And then suddenly, HANA provides you with a way to ask them a question simultaneously. What HANA does is provide you with the answer of the twice the planet's population in 100 milliseconds. That's a tenth of a second. So that really, it blows people's mind. You know, it's just incomprehensible that anything can work so fast. But then you look at HANA and you think about scale. What HANA does in a scale sense, it allows us to put data at the 6 times density level. So it's 6 times more data for a given amount of server power. And then it allows us to access that at phenomenal speed that's beyond comprehension. And of course, it in turn gives you the ability to analyze, simulate, and more importantly, predict. Almost predict the future. So how does it predict it and how does it format it? And that's the last S. It's simplicity. Because there's no point in having so much data in front of you that you can't understand it. So simplification of the data is a core ingredient of the HANA concept. So you get a fit scale, you get speed, and you get simplicity. It's just an amazing tool to place in the hands of both our engineers and our management.
Wow. So Vishal, you want a description of HANA? There you go. It sounds a lot like driving a Formula One car in a grid on a weekend is like running a business with the scale, the speed, and the simplicity that you are describing. You know, as a chairman, when you look at running a business, do you see the parallel so that you can adapt it to business instead?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think of when I think of my role in the company is, you know, I like to feel that I can bring, you know, a lot of experience that's come through the many years of being involved in the business, and to be, you know, a guiding force. And I'm very, of course, I've got a lot of my own money locked up in my businesses. Probably 80% of my net worth is locked up in my businesses, which shows I'm pretty sensitive to mistakes. And of course, as a chairman, inevitably, I try within governance, you know, to interfere. Of course, I'm sure it never happens in your company.
No, that would never happen.
I couldn't imagine your chairman interfering in your business, but in mine it does. And I find that, of course, being able to have knowledge and access to data quickly allows me to be a little bit more subjective in voicing my opinion.
Very good. Well, you know, we produce a lot of software, and we typically go after the many users because then we can sell many pieces of software. But I always felt that as a chairman, you need to have accurate data so you can understand what goes on in the business. And we actually took a little team out for a design thinking exercise to say, what would we do if we were to build the perfect dashboard for the chairman of the McLaren Group? Are you ready for a little demo?
Go ahead. I can't wait.
So, please welcome Fred Sampson on stage. He's been working on this at high speed. Fred, tell us what you've been doing and let us see the tool.
Jim, Ron, thank you. So those of you that have been to our showcase area will have seen our mission control display. By the way, those that haven't, don't go now, but definitely go and check it out. Now that's a very, very simple version of the real mission control at McLaren, where a lot of complex analysis and race time decisions get made. So Jim, you challenged us to take that same complex data and build simple analytics on top of it for a race manager. So here's what we did. This is our McLaren Racing dashboard. And what we have here is a picture of one race. This is the data from Brazil 2012. Just happens to have been a race that was won by McLaren. And what we've done is we've laid out the entire race.
Distant memory, unfortunately. Don't know about that.
One of the many.
It'll come back.
So what we've done is we've laid out the data for the entire race on one single screen. Now, Formula One race is a complex sequence of events and pit stops. And as you look at this, you can see each line represents one driver's race. The white markers are the pit stops. And I'll walk you through this a little bit. Simply by looking at the first 2 lines, you'll notice that the first driver, it started to rain, was actually able to stay out longer, right, shown by the longer red line from the second driver, stay out longer while the second driver came in early for rain tires. And that simple fact led to the difference at the end and led to the win. So these are the kinds of insights that we can derive by looking at these pictures. As we step away from the details, from the individual events, and as we use our executive reporting tools to look at it, we can get a true picture of what happens in a race, in a market, for a product launch. It's the exact same parallel between racing and between business. But we don't just look at the results. Results are only one KPI that we look at. The goal of these tools is to gain knowledge, to gain insight. So we look at other KPIs, which we've also listed here. Where are we strong? Where do we need to improve? How do we compare against our competition? Those are the kinds of things that through these dashboards and through these tools we can surface to really paint a picture of what's going on, and that's what we need to make decisions. Okay? So how do we take this kind of insight and how do we project that over a much larger scale? Here's a picture of this year's championship. Now, a Formula One championship is a very, very complex thing to predict. But just like anything else, we don't want to look at where we were, we want to look at where we're going. And so what we've done is we've created a model, which is a very, very complex model. It's based on simulations, track performance, weather data, statistics, historical content, but it's also based on intuition. So we're able to create a model where we can actually say, what if we did well here? What if we had, some issues there? What if we could, what results do we need to achieve to get the goals that we want? And we can go and set these parameters in the model. In this case, we'll pick a win. Go back and see the impact that has on the picture that we're trying to get to. Now, obviously, as we go forward in the future, our model is a little bit less accurate, which is why the lines get a little bit faded out. But the whole point of this is that we need to know where we are. We need to make informed decisions and predictions and constantly measure how we're tracking against those predictions. Again, it's no different for a race team than it is for somebody launching a new product in the market. So, by the way, these are our standard executive reporting tools that produce very, very simple views based on that complex data.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, 13 billion records in sub-seconds. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I would actually like to hand this over as a gift.
Thank you.
Because we really would like to see you winning this year's championship.
Listen, we've only just started. We're only a fraction of the way through the season, so there's plenty of time yet. But
and now you can predict it, and if you have any of your products in spare, let me know. I'll take care.
No problem. I think, like any executive, you never ever reject the concept of putting another tool in your management toolbox. So this will be a very treasured and used one, and no doubt I'll find a very treasured and used car to send over to you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Dennis.